Yashodanandana Vrajajandana Yamunatena Yamunatena Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Chant the invocation mantras, call and response. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're not reading any verses, right? So, it's a really special day today. It is the appearance day of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura Śrīla Prabhupāda. So, the spiritual master of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. So, our beloved Śrīla Prabhupada, his spiritual master. Okay. So, what I wanted to do was to share some of his life stories and some of his pastimes, and talk through some of the lessons that I got from those pastimes, and then wanted to hear from you one, if you know any pastimes that you could share, or two, maybe the thoughts or the lessons that come to your mind when you hear these pastimes, right? I may look at my phone at certain points to remember some of those. So to set up some background, so Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura's father, Bhaktivedanta Ṭhākura, was a really special person too. So he was around the 1800s when India was under the British rule. He was serving as a magistrate under the British rule. And at that time, while he was doing that service, he had 10 children, and he would do his service, and in the which was basically listening to all these cases and providing the jury, or I should say the verdict on those cases. And so in the evening, he would take rest from 8 p.m. to midnight, and then he'll wake up at midnight, and then he'll start writing a lot of the poetries, the books, some of which we're familiar with. And at that time, he wanted to share and spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left the planet in 1534, 1535, so something like that. So about 300 years later, I was astonished by hearing that actually, so around 1850, it took, in India, it took Bhaktivedanta Thakur 11 years to find a genuine copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that shows you how much it had been degraded and diluted between those 300 years after Mahaprabhu left, to really where it was hard to find the real teachings of Mahaprabhu. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he took as his mission to share the message of Mahaprabhu. And he was so learned and such a scholar that he could have actually, taught something else. He could have taught love of God and built his own message, but he really wanted to share the teachings of Mahaprabhu. He was so, one of the things that is really inspiring for me, for his life. He was so dedicated towards his service, right, as we see, but then he also did equally fine or of a job as a magistrate, to where the British government admired him so much, to where he had to go to the city for these cases, right? And he did not want to move. He did not want to leave his town, right? So he did not want to leave his town. So the British government actually built a railroad track, so that way he could take the train from his village to come to the city for work every day, right? So, in today's world, think of it like if a company is hiring someone and they value you so much, an equivalent would be like they'll put a helipad, on your house. All right, a helicopter will come and get you and then take you to work and then, drop you back, because we really need you, this badly. Like we value you so much, and then, so, that's the, to show how wonderful of a personality Bhaktivedanta Thakur is. And so his main mission was to reestablish the teachings of Mahaprabhu, right? So for that, he was praying to have a child that would really help him to spread that message, right? Especially like how much impersonalism um, was being degraded. Vaishnavism, it got really diluted. So there weren't really very few people who were around who really were spreading or talking about the real teachings of Mahaprabhu. So he was praying for a child who would help him to spread the mission of Mahaprabhu. And then his prayers were answered, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura was born. Right. So he appeared on this planet on February 6th, 1874, and his name when he was born was given Bimal Prasad. At the time, when he was born, the umbilical cord was wrapped around him like a Brahmin thread. Right. So, and there were things that were happening to where Bhaktivedanta Thakur could see that he was the answer to his prayers. So when that year, when the procession for at Jagannath Puri for the cart was happening, the cart just stopped and stalled outside Bhaktivedanta Thakur's house for 3 days, and it wouldn't move. So his wife brought little Bimal Prasad. He was about 6-7 months old at the time, and he offered. She took him on the cart, and she offered him as and getting blessings of Lord Jagannath. And so this little boy, he's just kind of like has little hands, and right, he was like by the deities, the garland from Lord Jagannath fell, and Lord Jagannath garlanded this little boy, Bimal Prasad. Right? So that was another example of where Bhaktivedanta Thakur could see that this was a very special child who will help him to spread Lord Chaitanya's mission. And so from very early age, he was very strict against impersonalism and that philosophy. So there's a pastime when he was, as I was saying, there were a lot of these groups that were propagating different messages and a lot of impersonalism. So one of the group had their slogan of Nirakar Charan. Okay. So akar means form, right? So Nirakar, like formless, and then Charan means feet. So having formless feet. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur took the boy Bimal Prasad there, and so he was 7, and so this little Bimal Prasad boy, he actually started challenging over there. He's like, how can you see these feet if they're formless? Right? This makes no sense. How can you have feet and it can be formless? How do you see such a thing? So if you're seeing feet, then there must be a form, right? So from very young age, he wouldn't take all of this nonsense. So he was very challenging, and he had good knowledge of very good knowledge of scriptures. He had memorized the whole Gita when he was 7, so he could use the scriptures to defeat the impersonalist and all of these nonsense in any kind of arguments. And so when growing up, like he got really well education. He was an expert in astrology, astronomy, a great scholar of Sanskrit, and so materially he was very qualified, right? And so he as I was sharing that there were very few devotees at the time who were really sharing the real message of Mahaprabhu. One of those very few devotees were Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji. So at the time, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura or Bimal Prasad wanted to take shelter of Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji. So but Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji was, in a mood of a Babaji who was basically his way to serve the Lord, or his mood was just chanting the names of the Lord, right? He was just so absorbed in the names. So Bimal Prasad approached him multiple times, and Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji would, one way or the other, give him one excuse or the other and try to push him away. But he was so adamant that he kept on trying. And so one time he met him on the bridge and he paid his obeisances to him, and he said, "If you actually don't initiate me, I'll jump off the bridge from here." So then Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji says, "Actually, let me go back and I'll see Mahaprabhu, and when I see Mahaprabhu, I'll ask him and see if he gives me an answer. Yes, if he gives me the blessing, then I'll initiate you." He said, "Okay." So the next day, Bimal Prasad goes and meet Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji and asks him, "Did you meet Mahaprabhu?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did." And like, "Did you ask him?" He's like, "Oh, I forgot." I'll ask him again. I'll ask him next time. So like he would find ways to to not. He would just give ways to not to initiate him, and then finally, but seeing his dedication and his surrender, and he finally gave in, and he initiated him, and that's when he got the name Bhakti Siddhanta. And so at the time, I think once there was a debate that was these caste Brahmins were doing, where they were their whole point was to be a Brahmin, you have to be born in a Brahmin family. Okay? If you're not born in a Brahmin family, then you cannot do Brahmin duties. Right? So that was kind of the message that they were doing. So they wanted to hold this debate, and they invited Bhaktivedanta Thakur to come as one of the speakers on the debate to present his views on it. Okay. And actually, Bhaktivedanta Thakur felt really sick and he couldn't go. So he asked Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to actually go in his place. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur went. And when he went, everyone knew of him, right? And so the caste Brahmins knew, like, he's definitely not on our side. He's going to present this debate as against us. Right? So he went and he started speaking, and he spent hours and hours glorifying Brahmins and how wonderful the Brahmins are, giving all these verses from the scriptures that glorifies Brahmins. And so this goes on for hours, and so the Brahmins, right, are like, oh, we thought he was not on our side, but here he is like glorifying us. So it looks like he's on our side. So he spent hours on glorifying Brahmins, and then he went into, okay, so Brahmins are so great, but then who is Brahmin? If Brahmin is this body, and then when the soul leaves the body, you're actually burning the body, so you're actually burning a Brahmin, so you're doing a big aparadh, right? So you're doing a big offense by burning a Brahmin. So the body cannot be Brahmin. Is the soul Brahmin? Is the Atma Brahmin? Okay. But the soul never dies, changing body, right? So is the soul the Brahmin? And so giving all these, and then kind of giving verses from the scripture, he's like, it's actually the qualities is what makes a Brahmin. So it's not the body, it's not the soul, it's the qualities that makes a Brahmin, right? And so, and then he gave example of Śrīla Vyasadeva, right? Vyasadeva, was he a Brahmin or not? Because he was not born from a Brahmin mother, but he was definitely a Brahmin. Valmiki, who wrote Ramayana, he was not from a Brahmin family. Had a really different background. So, like, is he a Brahmin or not? So he presented this argument, really strong argument, to where these Brahmins were actually leaving town. They're like, oh, if we are around here now, we won't really be able to do what we have been doing, cheating people and getting donations and doing all these things on the names of Brahmins. So they started leaving town, and the word started spreading, and these common, quote unquote, common people were really happy, and they started coming, and collecting there in thousands. So many of them came that actually when the debate ended, the police, the cops had to come to just make sure that that Bhakti Siddhanta is like, they all wanted to touch his feet, that like they were nervous that like he would get hurt. So what they ended up doing, they got this big tub of water, put his feet in the tub of water, and then they took a hose and started spraying everyone with that water to make sure he was safe. And then all these people will get the Charnamrita, the water from the lotus feet of his.
Smart belief.
Yeah, so it's a smart way to keep him safe and handle that too. He was a very revolutionary person of his times. So at the time, he would do these big processions for Sankirtan, and he would use like elephants and horses to make these big processions, because then people will see like what is really happening, and they'll come and they would want to hear and see, right? And that how, so he'll make like a big show to attract people to hear the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So at the time, in the early mid 1800s, cars were very uncommon in India, right? Very, very few people had cars, right? And so very few government officials would have cars. So in the town, there was one government official who had a car, and guess who was the second person who had a car? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura had a car. When I heard that, I was blown. I was like, what? Like, so, yeah, it's like he's a sannyasi, and at the time when there's only like two people having a car, he has a car, right? But the way he was using the car is actually he would ask, he had a chauffeur, so the driver would take the car to a village, and he would just leave the car. He would sit in the car and leave the car, right? And now, the car coming to this village, all these people have never seen a car. Everyone will just come around the car, like touching it. So you'll get all these, everyone from the village collected in this one place. And then he'll get out of the car and he'll sit on the top of the car and he'll give the lecture, right? So, so he'll come up with these very creative ideas to spread the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he wasn't shy on using unconventional ways, to where he would even get, pushback, I'm sure, from a lot of quote unquote sadhus around him, to why he was doing certain things, right? But his main focus was to spread the message of Mahaprabhu, and whether that required elephants or cars, he was happy to take that and use that in service of Krishna, in service of spreading the message of Mahaprabhu, right? And so we can see it shows, it gives a really good example of how our dear Śrīla Prabhupada learned from some of these stories, and he applied those in his own ways to be unconventional and be able to preach and share a message of Krishna consciousness in the Western world. So he was, but at the same time, he was very sincere in his dealings. His focus for him and his disciples were devotional service. So he would, when he would see like a brahmachari reading scriptures a lot, he would tell him that there are only two reasons to read scriptures. One is for self-purification, and two is for preaching, right? So he didn't want his disciples to get puffed up. Look at all the knowledge I have, right? So he would remind that really the purpose of reading the scriptures is self-purification and to be able to preach. And so he would focus on asking his brahmacharis to go and preach, to the point where at times some of the brahmacharis would say that they did not have enough energy on days of Ekadasi because they were not getting grains. They're like, if we're just eating fruits and vegetables, we're not getting grains, we don't have enough energy to go out and share the message. So he said, okay, you take grain, but go share the message, right? So again, his focus was to spread the message of Krishna consciousness. And so based on that, if he had to make certain tweaks, but like the focus was to make sure that the actual message was getting spread. But he himself was so sincere and austere, to the point actually when he was having these debates and arguments with the caste Brahmins came to Bhaktivedanta Thakur and told him that you should please watch out for your son, he keeps on having these arguments and debates with us. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked him to, he's like, actually the caste Brahmins in this town cannot handle your energy. And so at that time then, I think from 1905 to 1914, he took a vow to chant 300,000 names of Krishna every day. And I believe it's about 190 rounds every day. Okay. So for 9 years, from morning, he would take morning to night, he would basically be chanting. And he would take prasadam once a day during that time. And his vow was to chant, and his focus was to chant. And he was so austere that during the Chaturmas, during the rainy time, he would basically hold umbrella on one hand and then his japa beads on the other, and he would chant. And he only ate like this very simple khichdi for prasad. And what he would do is he would take a spoon and he would put the khichdi in front of him on the ground, and he would put his two hands back, and like he'll go down and then eat, and whatever he could eat in one time, that was all he ate. Right? So he would put one spoon of khichdi in front of him from that very simple khichdi. He would put his hands on the ground, or I'm sorry, his hands behind his back, and then basically go down, and then like just whatever he could get from his tongue, that's all he ate during that month, or that one day that was his meal.
No, like a cow. We'll eat like a cow.
Right.
No hand.
No hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that one time.
Wow.
Yeah. So the note is like, don't try this at home. Right, so
all of us at the same time.
but you can see just like our dear Śrīla Prabhupada, like how he was very strict on him, but he made arrangements, and he made arrangements and things for his disciples and other devotees to make sure they are comfortable. And so whenever a disciple will approach him, he would offer them by saying dasomi, which means das, I'm your servant. Like, so was his offering. So whenever the disciple will come, he'll actually hold his hand and say dasomi. So like, I'm the servant. How can I serve you? And in the night time, so these brahmacharis in the ashram, and they'll be taking rest, he'll actually go around, and this is India in early 1800s. He'll go around and make sure that the mosquito nets were put on their bed, and if weren't, he would actually put the mosquito net and zip them to make sure like the brahmacharis will get good night's sleep and they're having good rest. Okay. And so talking about like teaching or sharing Krishna consciousness and preaching in unconventional ways. There was a land in Puri which was like on a hill, and the hill was full of the thorny trees and thorny bushes. And at the time, people believed that the reason it had all these thorny trees and thorny bushes was because it was occupied by ghosts. So that was not a good land, and so no one went there. Right? So since no one went there, and there was thorny bushes on the land, so it was really cheap. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura, he got that land, right? And he cleared all those thorny bushes and established a center over there, near Jagannath Puri. And he said actually the reason it was covered by thorny bushes or thorny trees was actually Yoga Maya was covering it, so that way no one else could take it.
Saving plan.
Yeah. And so at the time, he was, as I was sharing, like he was so absorbed in chanting during those 8 or 9 years, he would really just leave town if there was like any place where there were like debates like that, or he had to, there was ways to where he could share Krishna consciousness. That was the only time, I think 1905 to like 1914 he would leave, right? So to where one time this person in Calcutta, he wanted to spread the mission of Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. So like, I want to spread this mission of Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, like who can help me? And so he's inquiring, and so in the city of Calcutta. So then people tell him, actually, if you really want to do that, you should go to Navadvip and meet this person, Ṭhākura, and he would help him. So I was like, okay. So he goes to Navadvip, and so he inquires, and he's like, how can I meet him? And so they're like, well, he's busy in chanting. The only thing we know for sure is like, in the evening he'll come to this lake to take bath. And so if you just stay there and wait there, he'll come sometime in the evening to take bath. And so he was waiting. So this tall 6 feet person wearing saffron comes running, raising his hand, Nitai Gaur, jumps in the lake with clothes on, take a swim, and then come out, Nitai Gaur. And so the person stops him. So that's Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura. And so this person stops him and says, I want to share the message of Lord Chaitanya. And so he says, oh, there's the Sankirtan party of Lord Nityananda. There's a Sankirtan party of Lord Chaitanya. Go join them. And then he says that and run away. Nitai Gaur. So at the time, that was kind of his mood for those years. But then in 1914, Bhaktivedanta Thakur left the planet, and then in 1915, Gaur Kishor Das Babaji Maharaj left the planet. So within 1 year, both of his gurus left the planet, right? So it's a really hard time for any Vaishnav to go through a loss like that. So during that time, he was very demotivated, and he didn't really understand what to do. Okay. And so it's a really good lesson for us, right? Like, to, again, he's showing us by his example that a Vaishnava like him, chanting 300,000 names of Krishna every day, having knowledge of all the scriptures, still can get demotivated in this material world, right? So when that happens, how do you fix that, or how do you get motivated? It's actually when you hear the message or hear that same knowledge of Shastras from the mouth of another Vaishnava. Okay? And those words really come from Krishna, and that's what can motivate someone. So at that time, he was sitting by the lake, right? And he a page of a scripture with the wind flew towards him, and he read that, and the verse was, I'm trying to find if anyone knows, it was the verse from, the famous verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita that actually Mahaprabhu spoke to Sanatana Goswami when he had gotten this sickness on his body. So the verse was Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Prema, Seva Pravatan, Lupta Tirtha Udara, Ara Vairagya Sikshan. Okay. So Krishna Bhakti, devotional service of Krishna, or Krishna Prema, right? Love of Krishna, or Krishna Prema Seva, so loving devotional service. Lupta Tirtha Udara. Lupta means disappeared. Tirtha, places of pilgrimage or sacred places. To rediscover the places of pilgrimage. Ara Vairagya Sikshan. And so how to live the life of renunciation. So Mahaprabhu actually shared this verse, or spoke this verse to Sanatana Goswami when he was actually feeling very dejected and demotivated because he had gotten this sickness on his body. And that's when Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami that actually you cannot. And Sanatana Goswami was like ready to leave his body, and he said, no, I have all these plans for you. This is what you need to do for me. And so you cannot leave, right? And so he got this same verse that flew to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura. And when he read that, he saw that as a message from Krishna, that that's what his mission is, and that's what he needs to spend his time focusing on. And so then, right after that, he put a picture of Gauḍīya Kishor Babaji Maharaj, and he took sannyas in front of the picture. And then he went to Calcutta and went to the house of that same person who had approached him, who wanted to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya, right? And so that person is like, now seeing this Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in saffron and shaved head and have tilak on. And so like, do you remember me? Do you still want to spread the message of Mahaprabhu? And he said yes. And so he said, okay, let's go. And then that day itself, he established the Gauḍīya Maṭha. And so like this, he continued preaching and sharing the message of Krishna consciousness. He actually established this. He was so organized. I was blown away. I just want to share two more things, and then I would love to hear any pastimes or discussions from you. So he established this. He established this society called Vishva Vaisṇava Rajya Sabha, right? So Vishva means world, international. Vaishnav, right? Devotees of Krishna. Sabha is society, right? So he established that in 1920.
It's like his kind.
Right. So so you can see how Prabhupada was taking the teachings from his guru. So he established different departments. There are 5 or I think 6 departments, right? So the first department was called Manada Mandali, which was the department that was focused on deity service and Vaishnava service, devotee care. So that was one department that was responsible for that. Then there was Śrī Caitanya, right? Preacher Mandali. So that or Prachar Mandali. So that Mandali or that department was focused on preaching the message of or sharing the message of Mahaprabhu, and it was divided into 3. It was divided into Nam and Kirtan Prachar. So that team was focused on going out and doing Sankirtan. Shastra Prachar, right? So that team was responsible for book distribution. And then Shastra Siksha, that team was responsible for publishing the books and sharing the knowledge of the books. And then then there was Jigyasa Mandali. I was blown away when I heard of this, and like to show you how revolutionary he was and ahead of his time. So Jigyasa means investigative, right? So there was a Mandali for investigation committee. What were they investigating, you think? So they were responsible to investigate or evaluate the character, the background, and the nature of the devotees who were living in the ashram. So that way they can engage them in the right service. So
It's like Korean Dharma.
yeah. Right. So when I heard that, I was just blown away that he had a specific department focused on that, and that's what their service was, right? Then there was Utsav Mandali, right? So Utsav means festival, so they were focused on preparing and celebrating all the festivals. Pashan Dalan Mandali, these were focused on having like rational defense of defending bhakti against all the arguments of all the different arguments that would come against bhakti.
It's a legal team.
But just focus on the bhakti.
Yeah, the Shastra legal
Right.
team.
Yeah. Bhakti Anushthan Mandali, those were focused on preserving the temple, right? Taking care of the temples and the centers. So these were all the departments that he had. And when he would send his disciples to West to preach or share Krishna consciousness. He would, so some of them went to London, some places in Europe had limited success. He would tell them to don't think that I'm Hindu or I'm so and so and I'm at a certain level, I'm a Brahmin. But so don't try to share that message, but actually try to inspire people in the Western world to take up Krishna consciousness. So you yourself become an inspiration by which others want to learn from you or be curious, right? And so you can see how our beloved Śrīla Prabhupada exemplifies that and took that mood and teaching to his heart, right? To where for first few years he's serving these hippies, right? Like literally, like on the Sunday feast, cooking prasadam, cleaning all the dishes after they leave, standing in the queue to use his own bathroom, right? With these hippies, and he not even once he was like, "Why aren't you helping me? This is not my service, Prabhu," right? And so we can see from the example of these wonderful Vaishnavas, and learn really the attitude to try to serve other devotees sincerely, and through that, trying to serve sincerely will inspire others to take up Krishna consciousness and to take up this movement and spread this movement of Krishna consciousness, what Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura Prabhupada and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda want to do, and would love for us to share this. I would love to hear any pastimes or thoughts or teachings.
Thank you very much. In the society that he formed, it was called Vishva Vaishnava.
I think it was called Vishva Vaisṇava Rajya Sabha.
One on the Jigyasa one, the investigative one. It's interesting to see how it was about the welfare of devotees. They were not really the hand of judgment, in terms of like looking for what's missing, what the faults are, what the shortcomings, but what the nature is and how to properly engage it. That's really that. Thank you for highlighting that.
So this reminds me of another pastime that I didn't share. So there was few brahmacharis who were doing kirtan, and so one brahmachari he was leading kirtan, another brahmachari was playing mridanga, but he was so tired playing mridanga, and then he was fall asleep. And so the devotee who was leading the kirtan got a little frustrated, so he took the mridanga and gave it to another devotee. And Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Ṭhākura was there, and he was kind of passing by, and he saw that. And so he told the devotee to, he said, actually, if a devotee is not able to do their service properly, you rectify it, but you don't take the service away. Okay? So make sure he actually plays mridanga. So to your point, he was very, he wanted to make sure that, one, the devotee was getting the right devotional service, and then two, even if they had some shortcomings because of which they weren't able to do it, you rectify the shortcomings, not that you take the service away. Anyone else?
One story I remember came to mind is when I was a kid, I heard this story. I think two brahmacharis were fighting. They were just hating each other's guts. I don't know, just every single bit just bothered them. So what the Bhaktivedanta Swami did, he put him in a room, and he sat there and he said, "Now I want you to start glorifying each other." And they were like, "Well, he eats prasad, therefore he chants." And as they pushed themselves to glorify the devotee, eventually they come to realization this is a great soul. But it showed them that you have to switch your mind to start looking for good things.
Thank you. Anyone else? I missed actually one of the most favorite pastime, and I'll see if someone can remember that, and I'll share it now.
Go back to the beginning of your class about holding the feet. the Śrī Upanishad is part of the Upanishads. It's actually the only Veda that, the only actual direct Veda that Prabhupada translated. It's very cryptic and it can be interpreted impersonally. Prabhupada translated that because it glorified God as a person. There's a verse in there about the Lord having no hands and no feet. It means no spiritual hands, no spiritual. Anyways, the answer to my advice is interpreted, the word formless, one with hands, one with feet. But the answer to that is Jaya. Larger than no hands and no feet.
Anyone else?
Jagannath accommodates everybody.
Yeah. he's the Lord of the universe, so he takes care of everyone. Anyone can think of the famous pastime that I'm thinking of? The mango pastime?
The mango pastime.
Anyone knows the mango pastime?
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, he something.
With microphone.
Yeah, we have people watching.
You're live.
Something when he was young, he had something to do with mango. I don't remember exactly what it was, but later on, then he decided never to eat mango again. Why did he eat it without offering it? Was that the thing?
Yeah. So what happened was there were mango fruits there. He was a child, like I don't know, like 6, 7 year old. So he ate the mango, and so Bhaktivedanta Ṭhākura, just like as a parent, like he just wanted to make sure like his child is learning to offer the boga to Krishna. So he's like, we don't, that's boga. We don't eat boga. You need to offer it to Krishna. And so at that, from that, he took a vow that I would not eat mango ever again. And when he even, throughout his life, when he became a sannyasi, he's like, he would go to all these places and he would, people would offer him mango and you're like, sorry, I cannot take it. I'm an offender. And so, that was kind of his sincerity. So yeah, thank you.
But I heard he did take mango pickle.
Yeah.
What is a mango pickle?
Mango pickle, you know pickle?
You put like something in vinegar? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a way that in India they make all kinds of pickles. Right?
So it's basically, it's made from green mango, so it's unripe, so it's not the same as a sweet mango. And then you basically soak it in like mustard oil and salt and some spices for a long time, and that's how you pickle it.
It's mango, but it's not really mango.
It's savory.
It's very savory,
Yeah.
very savory,
Yeah, you can just take it with rice.
very salty.
Prabhupada said you can survive a winter with just rice and pickles.
He did, yeah. So when he would take later, like in the ashram time, like when he was in the Gauḍīya Maṭha time, when he would take prasadam one time still, and like he ate about like 5 pounds of rice in 1 month, and just a little bit milk, and that was kind of really his meal. And so very very austere in certain ways. But again, like there was a disciple of his who became a brahmachari and was a wrestler before, and so they would feed him like the brahmachari portions, and he's like, this is not enough for me. He's like, so rather than saying like, hey, now you're a brahmachari, like you need to start accommodating and not taking these big meals, he asked his disciples, no, you need to make sure that he gets fed nicely. So make sure like you give him the portions to what he needs. So he was really focused on devotee care. But at the same time, he was called the Simha Guru, the lion Guru, and he could be equally strict and like a thunderbolt on the principles. There was one funny passage, was like where he would challenge impersonalism, and so there was this. The Gauḍīya Maṭha had taken some loan from this person who was actually like an impersonalist, and so he approached Bhaktisiddhanta, asking for the payment on the loan, and so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura was like, what difference does it make? You know, you, me, we are all one. You have the money, or I have the money, right? We're all one. So what difference does it take, right? So he would kind of like, it's like, yeah, it does make a difference because, I have, it's your money and I have it. So obviously, I need to repay it. So it's not, all is one and stuff like that. So he would do some creative ways of preaching for people like that to teach them a lesson. So. Time for prasadam? Okay. Thank you so much. Haribol.
Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura ki!
Jai.